pick up.
Hello?
David.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Not well, though.
It's okay.
That's what she said. About your sexual performance, not mine. She said that was awesome. And like a religious experience. All
Yeah,
right.
not that well.
How about now?
I heard that.
Okay. So what's new? David Ziegler. David, I never know how to pronounce your last name because it seems
My last name?
Yeah, it seems foreign to me. So when people ask me, I just start with a Z and L, end with a ing.
It's like Darling, but with a Z.
So not at all how I've ever been pronouncing it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
How do you pronounce my last name?
Stockstill.
Yeah, see, you're way off. It's pronounced Stockstill.
Oh, man. I had no idea.
Yeah. No, but what most people think is they want to put a W or a D in there, which isn't there.
Huh.
Yeah. Do you know the lineage or history behind your last name? A lot of people look into that. A lot of I'm assuming white nationalists look into it, but talking to you,
Yeah, mostly.
Have you looked into it?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's like Pomeranian.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere, I think it's like where like the Baltic countries are now, is where my people are from.
Okay. So,
which is why I never want to go on vacation anywhere warm.
Have you ever Googled your last name to see what the meaning or significance of your last name is? Zarling? Nope. Okay.
I haven't.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You ever Googled yourself? Be honest.
Well, there's another David Zarling, and he's really important.
What's he do?
He's a scientist of some kind. Let's see. I think he's like literally a brain surgeon or something. Let's see. He's co-founder, president, and CEO of Colby Pharmaceutical Company and an oncology drug development scientist and entrepreneur. Zarling has also been a part of teams that successfully licensed technology to startup companies, one of which subsequently achieved significant market capitalization. That sounds fucking great.
David, your resume just got so much better.
Yeah, I'm going to put all this on there. I mean, my middle initial isn't A, it's V.
Yeah, well, who cares? No one searches by middle initial.
No, nobody does.
No, you could
do kids these days even have middle names?
No. Well, my son does because it's danger and he's fucking awesome. So,
yeah.
You know my coworker, Zach, my subordinate? Zach, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about you.
Yeah, Zach, he left the group.
Yeah, Zach Brewer.
What was that about?
He just said we bitched too much, which is true.
Yeah, it is.
And that we were bumming him out because his life's already a bummer.
Yeah, it bums me out sometimes too. Okay, all right, cool.
No, like he was honest, and I support his decision. And
yeah, likewise.
I told him I couldn't change any of that and whatnot, and he'd be missed. But everyone in that group stop being a goddamn bummer. Anyway, so Zach, his last name is Brewer, and his middle name's Micro, so his full name's Zach Micro Brewer. And,
is that true?
Yeah, that is true. And
wow.
And his parents thought it was funny, like how I named my son's middle name Danger. It's just a gaffe. But he was invited to join a Facebook group by a Zach Brewer, and there was 20 other people in the group, and they were all Zach Brewers.
Was anybody a microbrewer?
No, he was the only one. And all the
So was he like instantly the prince of the group, or what?
No, he commented, "This is really weird and creepy," and left the group.
It sounds a little like me. Sounds a little to me like Zach's looking a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah. And so I've Googled my name when I was, before I became what I am, which is awesome. And it used to be Travis Stockstill was a goat farmer in the South. And he was the number one search result. Now I am. Probably as a result of just constantly Googling myself. And then I Googled my middle name, Travis William Stockstill. And guess what, David?
Huh.
According to Google, you sift through all the butchery stuff. I robbed some banks in the Midwest. And
according to what?
Google. Travis William Stockstill.
This is a different Travis Stockstill?
It is, but I was alluding that it was me.
Oh.
But, yeah, so Travis William Stockstill robbed some banks, and it loves opiates. Half of that statement is right.
Well, who doesn't?
Yeah. Well, they just give them out back in the early 2000s.
They sure did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that didn't have any effect on America.
Yeah, thank goodness that's over. You know, they've really been a lot of doctors that are like facing time because of the pharmaceutical thing.
Yeah, for not giving out enough pharmaceuticals for people who are in pain.
Yeah, and then also the ones that gave out too many.
David,
there's a guy in Michigan.
David, you ruined the gaffe. We were pretending as if there wasn't a problem, but no, there is a huge problem in America.
Oh, man.
Do you think it's anywhere else in the world or just America?
I mean, I'm sure there's like pockets, but I don't think that. I mean, there are obviously so many places in the world that are so much more difficult to live in than America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really safe here for the most part. I mean, relatively, right?
Yeah.
I'm speaking from a place of extreme privilege. I know that, but I'm just saying the average citizen is safer than the average citizen in, like, Somalia.
Yeah. Well, there was a travel warning recently about people visiting America to beware of mass shootings.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the original question?
Oh, do you think there's opioid crises in other countries?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. Maybe. Probably in, like, white Europe, I bet.
I don't know.
Like in the Catholic countries.
I feel, and I could be 100% wrong on this, but in other countries where you don't have pharmacies dictating sales to private doctors because doctors are paid for by the state, that there's not special interest to get people to try new things because it's not going to increase the revenue of the doctor.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I don't. You know, they've really. There's been a lot of programs that have been put in place to try to sever that relationship between those two partnerships. That partnership between the drug reps and the pharmacists. I mean, I was a pharmacy tech when I was 17 years old, and I remember back then, before the laws were put into place, the reps would come by and take the pharmacist out to dinner for like 2 or 3 hours. You know.
Yeah. Well, check this out. David, yourself and myself, we went to that food processing convention or expo in Chicago, right?
Uh-huh.
So
it was a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. We saw how many thousands of dollars worth of equipment were there, and how many companies?
I don't know, probably like $10 million, 10 to $50 million worth of equipment, and probably 250 vendors.
Okay, so with those numbers right there, and we were in less than a quarter of that arena space. Okay,
right.
I was talking because I did that demo, so I was talking to the people who were setting up the cameras and the microphones and all that bullshit, and I said, how much negative space is behind that drop curtain of this venue? And they said there's 75 feet beyond that, along with the 200 yards lineal feet. And then they said there's 2 other buildings available as well that weren't in use. And I asked, well, do you guys break those up, or has any convention ever used all those? And he said the pharmacy conventions use all the space.
Wow.
And I said, I wonder what that's like. Well, I didn't say that out loud. That would be weird. I was just thinking to myself, I wonder what that's like.
Yeah. You think they do samples?
I imagine it is so much wine and dine, and the after parties are unreal.
Yeah.
I had the chance to go to an after party of that meat processing convention, and let me tell you, I went to bed pretty early.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway about walking through that convention hall? Because yourself and myself, we're classically trained butchers, quote unquote. We have stumbled into certain niches in this profession, and a lot of people want to look down at big processors and all this stuff. But what did you feel about that convention? Should there have been more representation, or just go?
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think that the meat cutters need more representation, because that was a food processors expo. Like, I think that the North American Meat Producers Association, I think that they're or AAMP. I'm sorry, AAMP's convention in Iowa. I think that's going to be geared towards everybody from the rural country cut and wrap to, the medium-sized USDA production facility. I think that state level, like California meat producers, they've got a similar society. They're going to meet in February in San Luis Obispo. I think that those are more for meat cutters and butchers themselves. But like, this was for like food production. This was for scalable processing, and I think that unless you're moving towards or already, immersed in the CPG world, I don't think that this convention would have been particularly fruitful for you. I think it would have been cool to see the robotics and everything, but the lectures were more set up for people who are actively engaged in either setting up or currently managing a scalable processor, especially in the CPG realm. So, like,
for laymen, what does CPG
awesome.
mean for our listeners?
Consumer packaged goods. So,
okay.
For instance, you may be a company that previously had a farmers market circuit where you just, you took cattle to the slaughterhouse, you had a retail cut, packaged in backpacks, and had a farmers market circuit. But then you realized that you had a lot of support from local grocers, and you had to get SQF certified, Safe Quality Food International, which is like a third-party certifier that a lot of prime vendors take. So, like, if you wanted to be stocked in, the co-op system in your local area and had to be picked up by UNFI, the distributor, you'd have to get SQF certified probably. So,
no, David, I'm going to play the dumb listener.
Sure.
Okay. But I have a product and we go through the USDA. Why can't the USDA be good enough?
Well, that's a great question. And, it can't be, because while the USDA definitely, in my opinion, especially in the last 2 years, has really updated their requirements and their prerequisites for safe food processing, it's still not enough. I mean, let's be honest. You and I have both worked in some facilities with inspectors that were awesome. But, when you have these third-party certifiers that have the higher standards and the really very specific systems, the idea is, in order to jump through those hoops, you have to have a really robust, systematic approach to food safety and a very dedicated commitment from management. And you only get that in a company that ultimately is trying to scale and has a long-term plan. It's not necessarily usually something that a tiny cut and wrap in the country is concerned with, you know. And so it's important to have those third-party certifiers because they really do hold you to the next level of standard. And, you know, those out of all of the different certifications that are coming out, it seems like you can just make one up if you want right now. There's a lot of them out there that are kind of questionable. But I really trust SQF, BRC, and you know, the overall GFSI certifications because they're developed by food service professionals, former inspectors, DVMs, and people who really want to keep the supply chain safe. You know, and I think it makes everybody better. So I highly recommend to anybody out there, including small-time processors that may not be looking to move into, say, a Safeway or a Wegmans or a Whole Foods Market anytime soon. The SQF certification really does hold you to a higher standard and will allow you to understand your food safety program in and out much more in a much more familiar manner than you would just simply under USDA inspection. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. You know, as long as you follow the templates that are put forward online, and you have a good understanding of food safety and writing SOPs and generating documents and record keeping, you can get through that process all by yourself.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the big problems or big concerns with smaller producers is that they want to scale, right? And to do this, you have to have X amount of product, X amount of employees, then you have to pay to get yourself to be recognized by a third party, or not be recognized is super easy, but to fall in line to get in with these big boys, you know? And I think that a lot of smaller producers, a lot of small scale cut and wraps who are happy with their current or who want to expand but don't know how or apprehensive or scared of getting, you know, Stereotech or QFC or all these certifications, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And Stereotech does a great audit for SQF certification. Mm-hmm. They totally facilitate that. They're a great company. Yeah, you know, my advice to anybody that really wanted to take their small facility forward and scale into the future, more modern production, my biggest advice for them would be to develop a preventative maintenance schedule and a master sanitation schedule. Those two things. I would start there before anything else.
And how many hours do you think it would take for a small-scale company to do that?
Well, to be totally honest, I'm thinking back to any small cut and wrap that I worked where we were doing, you know, less than 30 head a week, and like 50 hogs and 50 lambs. So, you know, that very small kind of niche processing size. Mm-hmm. If it was me, I would take the $3 or $4 grand and I would spend that on having like the company that was formerly known as Silicur. I can't remember what they're called. They were bought up by a French company, but I would have a company send out a consultant that could teach me about preventative maintenance programs and master sanitation schedules, because these are things that once you have that framework to work within, you're never going to go back, you know, and it would probably take a couple of years of trial and error to implement something yourself that was efficient and cost-effective personnel-wise. But if you had a seasoned professional come out and just walk you through that process, you could probably do your annual HACCP assessment and maybe even provide you with a framework of SOPs for a program. I think all as part of a package, and it would be fairly affordable, and you could probably get it all done in like a working 5-day work week.
Now,
I would highly recommend that.
Okay. With the brunt, see, this is where I am fearful, and you are very aware of, with the brunt of the information to be implemented be on the day-to-day workers who are, let's say, sometimes rotating in and out of work, or on the managers, because it's really hard to have consistent working in this industry.
Yeah.
So we're shifting gears to get to this larger question that I'm going to ask. How do you tackle the overturn,
Ooh, man, that's a big one.
but while keeping up with your quality and your standards?
Yeah, that's so relevant right now. It's wow, that's such a great question. That's such a huge question. So that's a couple of different things, right? So I would say that as far as the rotating door and quality control and quality assurance, I would recommend that the people that you have on your management teams and in your quality control department, you really need to make sure that you're taking care of them as in, let's say you're a GM or an operations manager. I think engagement of management, first of all, is incredibly important. And then once you have a great management team, then developing a robust onboarding program where you're, very, very clear about expectations and setting the standard for GMPs and SSOPs within your facility. And when you bring that, I almost like hiring people off the street that don't have any experience, because it's a blank slate, and a lot of times if you can identify the right talent and get people in, you can find people that if you train them the second they get in the door, that's the only thing that they ever know. And the third thing that I would highly suggest is developing a true apprenticeship program. Because, I don't know about you, but I could think of lots of examples of people that got put into apprenticeship programs and then were just sort of put on the block and left to sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
Which works for some people, but not everybody learns the same way. And I think that a lot of younger people coming out of high school right now, or junior college, or just in that impressionable phase where they're trying to find a trade, the statistics say people that are 36 years of age and younger, which I guess is the millennial and younger crowd.
God damn, I'm right there. I'm 36.
Yeah, man. They say that before that generation, money was the number one motivator for workers in the American workplace, and now money is number 5. And the first 4 all have to do with security and engagement, and engagement is the number 1. And so people, young people, really want to have a purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like shedding light on a whole new management style, which is something that we talk about a lot, is about coaching rather than teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to coach people into finding answers for them, on their own accord, so that you build stronger team bonds, stronger individual contributors. And so, apprenticeship programs and coaching programs are really, really important. I know that sounds like a huge body of work, because it is.
Yeah.
But that investment is really, really worth it, because I know that there's a ton of people out there that are living in these small communities where the labor force is the labor pool is very, very shallow, and maybe education in the area is not the best, and the brightest and the perceived brightest and best are leaving the areas right away. So I think that, kind of farming your own talent is really the way to go.
Yeah, being on that, I'm 36. When my team captain asked me how old I was, and I had to think, and I forgot, because once you're 25, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm 26, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're young," and da da da. And I was like, "I don't feel young. I feel fucking old." But my main motivator, granted, I have this divine entity inside of me that makes me amazing at this job, but my motivation is the almighty dollar. That.
Yeah.
And pussy. And that being said, if my wife were to say, you need to do this and you would make more money sitting on my ass and, you know, doing nothing or doing something absurd that I can think of in this moment.
Making diapers.
Yeah, making diapers. Or like I worked at a bread factory or a brick factory or something that no one's ever heard of.
Totally.
I hate to say it, I would do it.
I think you've got a pretty old school work ethic.
Yeah. Like, it just, the fact is, like, I happen to be good at this. I happen to love this. That's why I'm doing, you know, this podcast. And because of my skill, I was able to join the American team and many other things. But also, you know, I'm married to a woman who likes nice things. You know, like living on the beach ain't free. So, like, and that's why I'm, you know, doing a bunch of other things outside of meat cutting. Because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Yep, that's right.
So, did you see what I posted online today, David?
I don't know. Did I?
I imagine you did.
What was that?
It was a comparison with.
Oh yeah. I did see that.
Yeah, it was like refrigeration workers, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, or whatever, and butchers, what they make annually. You know? And
yeah,
I said very frankly in that post, or I don't even know if I said it. My comment was, and I'll read it right now just so there's no confusion. So I hear this all the fucking time. Why aren't there more young people getting into this trade? Then on the other hand, I hear from hundreds of young people asking, how do I get into this trade? And, you know, so I don't know, but what I posted was, I hear all the time, why don't young people get into this trade? Back in the 80s, you could support a family off of one meat cutter salary with a pension and full bonuses. And then it says what a meat cutter makes today, which is $30,000 average. Then a plumber, which would make $46,000, and then electrician and carpenters both make $53,000. That's
dude, $30,000 is like $14 an hour.
Yeah, that's not very good.
Not as an average.
No. And that being said, why would you, if you're a young person, want to get in this industry and you could totally be like me? Like if Harrison, you know, 15 years from now when he's 20 or when he's 18 says, Dad, I want to be a butcher. If I don't own something to pass on to him, I'm going to tell him to go into equipment sales or be a refrigeration tech where he can make $100,000 a year without a college education. And I don't expect you to have an answer, David. I'm giving you an out right now. I think that the system's broken.
No, I think so too. I think that $14 an hour for an apprentice walking off the street is legitimate as long as they have a path forward that's got, you know, like a like a curriculum with accountability on both sides and a target end date.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to think that this was a American exclusive question, all right? And then I started getting comments from people in Ireland and France and Germany saying that this is the norm over there. And then I got comments from people saying that, well, this is how it is because the meat cutter isn't an experienced worker now that they're just opening bags and portioning. In my rebuttal, and I'm not rebutting because I want to argue or any of that, was that being said, the person who was trimming and specking in the packing house side who has to do so much an hour is still getting paid minimum wage. Is it the price of food? Or
that, I mean, I think it has to be, right? Like, nobody bats a freaking eye when they go to Costco and there's an 89-cent per pound pork loin.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's thinking about that. I can tell you right now that to produce one hog, and of course it changes with scale, but let's say you've got 200 hogs. Each one of those is going to cost you $2.50 to $3 a head to produce.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeding it anything decent, you know what I mean? Like an 89, these like $1 a pound sale meat items it just doesn't make any sense. Somebody's getting screwed. And so how can you? I mean, you do the financials for your business or have done them for multiple businesses. And I think about what it costs for me to produce beef and to process it. And I sat down with a consultant, this fella from the East Coast, Chris DeCenzo, guys, is a genius. And we figured out how much it costs to light 1 square foot of our plant floor,
mm-hmm.
and figured out what it really costs to produce anything to our plant. We're pretty efficient, and it was way more expensive than what you would ever guess. And, we're costing more in the processing plant than a lot of beef is on the market per pound that has gone through the entire supply chain. We're talking about transportation 3 different times, the farm, the processor, the packaging, the merchandising, the distribution, like all of it for $2-3 a pound. It's insane. It's just not possible, and like the parts along that chain that get subsidies, if that is a thing anywhere, I don't know. I think a lot of people blame things on government subsidies, but I don't know how realistic that is. It's like, man, it just ruins it for everybody. The margins are so tight in this business. I went to the farmers market last weekend in Oregon, and I try to buy meat. I don't eat a lot of meat, but I still buy meat from the local producers up there just to kind of start a conversation and see what they've got and taste local product and to see what's going on. Anyways, I got just over a pound of pork belly. Like she just had like these cuts of belly in her cooler. So I get this. It's like a pound and a quarter maybe, and it's like $23.
Yeah.
I was like, what, dude? $23, and like this is kind of what the industry is having to do.
Yeah, I posted that online on Instagram, and one of the comments was saying, and this is why it was a small business out of LA saying like, and this people like, I don't know what the answer is, but they were saying people complain because I charged X amount a pound because they want to pay their workers, a living wage.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know. It's like it's a double-edged sword, all right? Because
totally,
I and yourself, we're at a certain point in the industry where we're not represented in this statistic. That being said, we want to make sure that we make our companies the most amount of money possible. But we also want to bat for the little guy. And it's hard to find a little guy who is worth batting for.
Yeah.
I don't know if people follow all that, but I want to keep costs low so the company could be viable, for me to be viable, but I also want my employees to be taken care of, which means either the employees are going to have to work so much harder to keep labor down and keep that fourth guy off the boning table, or keep that third packager off the packing line, or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I have no idea, without getting into weird politics and shit like that. Would you recommend, David, and be candid as you want, keep in mind you were someone who had a dream beforehand, would you recommend for someone to get into this industry?
It would have to be very subjective. I wouldn't want to set someone up with unrealistic expectations, and I also would not want to throw another aimless, disengaged employee into the fold. I think that there's a certain type of worker that's great for this business. It's a self-motivator, a creative problem solver, someone who's competitive, someone who likes working long hours, someone who has a lot of passion, I think, and it's regardless of what that's for. I mean, some people it's for competition, some people it's like to look cool, some people it's to pay their bills, whatever it may be. If you've got like that drive that will keep you going when your mind tells you like, hey, maybe this isn't working, I think that you can really do well in this industry. It can also be a pretty great job if you want to get into retail. If you want to like stick with a company like New Seasons or like Whole Foods Market or the co-op system, you could be making $20 to $25 an hour as a cutter, just if you just put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's definitely some opportunities. But if someone was coming to me saying, hey, I'm 35, I want to change my trade, I've got 4 kids, a mortgage, and I'm thinking about getting into the meat trade, I would say, dude, go to school to be a linesman,
mm-hmm.
or a bricklayer, or a diesel mechanic or something. Like if you're just looking for a trade, this is kind of a if you want to make money and make it into a career, it's definitely not something that you start when you're already in the hole.
And what would your what would your recommendation be towards cutters who are 10 years in when they want to step their game up, or people who are so far in that they, their second kid's on the way and $18 an hour isn't cutting it? What skills can they do, or what side of the industry should they get into?
If I had been a cutter for 10 years and wanted to up my game, I would, and let's say, had a family or like had bills to pay or something, I would make a deal with whoever I was in those agreements with that you were going to go really hard for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably either get a job. I'd probably try to get a job in a kill facility and go super hard on their kill floor.
Okay.
And try to blast through it and just climb to the top as quickly as humanly possible. And make yourself someone that can go field to fork all the way.
Yeah.
And I'd probably learn to cook a little bit too somewhere in there. And then I would learn about food safety, like really deep food safety, and I would build a resume and then try to get into production management or quality control or VAP, processing management, something like that.
Good.
That's what I would do.
All right, David. Anything else you want to add to this impromptu episode?
I think there's a lot more we can talk about here, as far as like career advice and different ways to get your, find your way through the business. So I hope that we continue this conversation. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I encourage you. I'm going to stop it. All right, bye. Keep your knife sharp and all that stuff. Okay, all right. Farts.